Welcome to the diversity panel. I think that's what it's called. My name is Bill Campbell. I am the head cook and bottle washer of Rosario Publishing, which is 2 years old. We focus on science fiction and comics with a little bit of crime. I guess first we'll start off by everyone introducing themselves. And I guess we'll start with you.
Oh man.
Since you're right here.
Smart move. My name is Victor Dandridge. I'm a self-publishing comic creator from Columbus, Ohio. I've been self-publishing through my imprint, Bandage In-House Productions, full-time for almost 5 years now. It'll be 5 years in October. So that's my personal little claim to fame.
I'm Keck, and I'm also a self-published local comic artist, and I mostly produce mine at Staples. And I also have we put out this anthology. I'm the editor, and I have a story in here to benefit the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention.
I'm Dara Naraghi. I'm a local guy too. I've been self-publishing comics through Keck Press for about 10 or 11 years, and I've done some work for other publishers. Right now my project is a creator-run graphic novel trilogy called Virtual Blues that's coming out with next year.
So, you guys are all here because of issues of diversity, and I feel like it's a very hot topic right now, especially within comics. That there are a lot of interesting controversies or interesting attempts at diversity by the big two that I would like to actually discuss for a minute, because a lot of times what happens when I do these panels on the comic side, we end up starting talking about Marvel and DC anyway, so why don't we just get that out of the way first?
That's kind of smart.
The latest kerfuffle this weekend was the hip hop covers that they're doing.
Yeah.
So basically, they took old album covers, classic rap album covers, and did superhero comic covers for them. So Ant-Man is now the Notorious B.I.G.
Yeah.
Notorious
B.I.G. I think is what they put in. Yeah.
And one of the issues was that while, I guess it's cute and all, even though we don't know exactly what the two have to do in common other than just straight up appropriation, was that even though you take something that is as distinctly black identified as hip hop and use it to sell your products, you still don't have that many black creators. And for me, I find a lot of those attempts to be just like that, where we're trying to sugarcoat the whole idea of diversity, let's give them this, that, or the other, but really kind of missing the point. But I don't know, what would you say about these things? Because, we have the Miss Marvel, the Black Captain America, the Latino Ghost Rider, female Thor, but it really doesn't.
For me, I'll be honest, I didn't mind the covers. And honestly, for the counteraction of that sentiment, which is there are quite a few African American creators that were contributors to the covers, while not necessarily the issues themselves, the artists for that particular run of variants is very diverse. There are Turon Grant, he did one. I know, right? He's somewhat of a local, hero here, having gone to CCAD. We also had Sanford Green, he did some. I know Brian Stelfreeze did some. Juan Doe, who is a Latino creator, he did some. I never ever say his name correctly. It's Mamad Asrar. I don't know how to say his last name. I know I butchered his name completely. I think he's working on X-Men right now, but he is of Middle Eastern descent. I think he might be from Turkey, actually. But he did one. There's a range of different people that did contribute that does speak to where the roots of hip hop come from. And it's just one that, unfortunately, as a company, it doesn't seem like Marvel is speaking of that fact. It's not, I think they put it out there and they were hoping that it would be accepted, but because of the backlash of it, and specifically in that category, they've not retorted with, well, look at actually who's doing it. They've actually relied on the creators of color who did contribute to speak up for themselves and say, well, I did this one, I did this. You know, it's not true appropriation in the sense that this is just a company doing stuff. They actually did go to people that potentially do have an end to that lifestyle, that culture, that essence, and provide work that way. So I feel like it's very easy to see it in the initial and recognize that, no, on the interiors, probably few, if any of those guys are working on said interiors, but they at least, in the sense of doing that variant, did provide work to, you know, creators of those backgrounds. That's the one, like, saving grace to it, I took from it.
What was their impetus for doing those covers?
Don't know.
You know, they recently did a movie poster one.
DC did that, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought that was probably like, oh, what's next?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because like I love the Batgirl Purple Rain one.
That was great. I'm not gonna lie, that was
Yeah, like I love that one. Like I actually want that as a poster.
Honestly, I think that's probably about the level of thought that went into it. I don't think, I'm totally speculating, but I don't think anyone at Marvel said, hey, let's do a variant covers based on hip-hop covers so that we can talk about diversity. And I don't think they thought of, I think the whole thought was, hey, it would be kind of cool to do this because DC did one with like classic movie posters, and that was cool, so let's do this. And I think that's probably about as much thought as they put into it.
Oh, me too. I mean, I just think
They should have put in more thought into it based on what.
well, it's just things have weight.
Well, true.
And it's just like
It's-
and it's just like the concept not recognizing what that weight is.
Right. Because I would definitely agree on the sense that they could have done music albums, any genre, any type, and it wouldn't have been nearly as problematic. But because they so specifically went subculture music
Yeah.
genre,
I mean,
now
like
it's
Captain America, Born in the USA. Come on.
yeah, that's very genius, right?
Right, like, it's
Yeah.
instant.
Maybe the hip hop ones are all volume one.
Possible.
Maybe
That's
the
possible.
next wave will be
Rock
classic rock.
albums are right.
You know, the next wave punk rock.
Right.
You know.
You should do blue
And I
albums.
agree with you, sir. I forget your name.
Dara.
But I don't think there was a lot of thought put into it other than
This will be cool.
making money.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
Right.
unfortunately, that's the bottom line for the big two. What can we do to make money? You know,
Right. And that's unfortunate.
yeah.
But definitely what happens in their corporately owned model. You know, if you figure what creatively you have guys that are astounding talents, but they have to run stories up the flagpole to make sure that it matches cost analysis, marketing rules, and things like that. So, you know, something like this, where it could be something fun and interesting, really does boil down to dollars and cents.
Yeah.
That stinks.
Well, now both owned by parent corporations, Marvel owned by Disney, and I forget who DC, who bought DC.
Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and is dangerously rumored to be purchased by Disney as well,
Oh.
which could be a very interesting position.
Usually the mouse is not on at all.
I mean, basically. And honestly, what's ironic is, of course, that it's for different reasons. They are looking at Warner Brothers for television access, not necessarily DC. That would just be like, okay, I guess we got that too. But, yeah. Yeah.
So, the covers aside, it seems like that you still have. I mean, I think that was like, as I said, like that was the latest kerfuffle.
Right.
So actually, I am really curious because since I'm an independent publisher, I really don't care too much what they do.
Right.
I'm not really into superheroes that much anyway. But for this panel, I actually, even though I did check out Miss Marvel before this, but I did check out the female Thor and the Black Captain America, and well, the Black Captain America was just silly.
Have you guys read any of that?
So,
I honestly despise it. Like, I don't like.
yeah, because
I
like
don't like
what I mean, because one, he was the Falcon, right? But then they act like I said he's a novice.
Right.
So like he needs not only a white mentor, but he needs a white sidekick. And in their first adventure, all these white people come to save the Black Captain America because
He can't do.
he can't do it.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
but he was the Falcon.
Well, the other thing for me is that he doesn't. If you're gonna take Sam Wilson and make him Captain America, make him Captain America. Don't let him be like half Cap, half Falcon. Like either commit to it or leave it be. You know, him still flying around and I've got wings. Why? Cap's never had that. Like, if you're going to be Captain America, be Captain America. John Walker's done it. Bucky did it. They didn't have to, you know, hold on to any other prior anythings in order to be this character. They just were. Let it be. Otherwise, you're still trying to hold on to, you know, I can still go back to Falcon if it's not working. And so you know it's not a committed move. It's not something that is genuine.
So then, my question would be, because we are focusing on independent comics, it's like they're the you know, the big two gorillas in the room.
Right.
So then, when you look at like what we do, first, if you kind of explain what it is that you are actually trying to do, especially when addressing issues of diversity, and how do you see? Because I don't feel like those two will necessarily change, but how can we, in our small capacities, like what are we doing to help make that this diversity a much better or more realistic or a better reality than it is right now? I guess we'll just start on this end now. Come back.
I mean, I think on some level it's not really all that hard. It's just that you have to just think a little bit about it. Not, you know, especially if you're so used to writing for a genre like comics, science fiction, whatever, where it for the most part has been, you know, pretty white dominated. So like, you know, when I did stories for, you know, work for hire licensed properties, like I did a Terminator story, I did a Ghostbusters one shot, you know, things like that. You have a lot of, besides the central characters, you have a lot of supporting characters, and it's not that hard to think and consciously put in your script that, you know, I want this character to be of color, or, you know, just not your generic white person for every single one of these characters, even if they're not maybe that significant in the story, but just to have them represented, just to have there be something in that book that's different than how it's always been done for the last decades and decades and decades. So, and I think once more creators do that, and you see that more and more, that becomes a new norm. That starts reflecting what you see when you're out in the world and you're looking at your coworkers and your friends and, you know, society, and then it isn't that big a deal anymore. But like, to get over that inertia of like, well, it's always just kind of been done that way, that's the hard part.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I do autobio comics, and I guess because I'm female, I write about a lot of female things, and I like this one happens to be about buying bras, and anytime I'm talking to a non-female person at my table, I say, this is a great one to read because it'll give you empathy for us. And so I think just I like autobio stories and memoirs and things, and I think that's because the telling of the really personal stories gets you beyond the categories we all end up in. And then also, like with this anthology, I do have a story in here. We have a lot of other stories from a lot of diverse viewpoints, and I think mental illness is something that has kind of been in the closet for a long time, and I know I didn't talk about my struggles with depression for a long time.
Right.
And my story that's in here is about when I attempted suicide when I was 16, and I was married for 20 years, and my ex-husband doesn't even know that that happened to me because I kept it such a secret. And because at the time at which that happened to me, that was how people reacted. Everything was supposed to be a secret. And I think that doing comics that help bring issues like that just out into the light, and to get people to realize that we're all human and we just all have stories.
Actually, I'd like to follow up on that, because like one of the things that I find frustrating, I guess, especially as a publisher, because like when I say diversity, I actually mean it. Like I like, you know, like we have this thing coming out called Shattered Prism, like we just break the prism and everything. And like what you're talking about here, so a lot of times people when they talk about diversity, they just think like race. Like if we just throw like 3 black people in the corner and like we're diverse and, you know, sing Harry Jackson or whatever it is, I don't know what to say. So, like, this is very interesting to me because, well, the bra thing is interesting because I always used to mess up my wife's bra and the washing machine. But he's like, don't try it. What? I'm sorry, I didn't see it. But when you're talking about like mental illness, like, I think the thing that I find most fascinating about this scene is that people can tell their own stories, and it's like, so like this is not something that you would walk into your comic book store and say, oh wow, here's a comic book about mental illness.
Right.
But they're there.
Yeah, there are, and there's more and more. Like Marbles by, what's her name?
Oh yeah, I just
Foreign.
Forney?
Ellen Forney.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, this is not quite mental illness, but there's another one called Tangles that's about a woman dealing with her mother's Alzheimer's and how it's progressing and stuff. And so I think more and more we're getting comics like that. So, yeah.
So do you think it's very important to just,
Put it out there.
yeah, just to put that kind of
Oh,
thing
yeah.
out there?
Yeah.
But they're not published by the big dudes.
Right.
They're
That's-
published by actual book publishers.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it's easy to recognize that the big two have quotas that they have to maintain in terms of their sales numbers, and that's how they speak, which is fine. But the thing that works well for us as indies is we aren't limited by those concepts. We are able to put out whatever we want that we want to speak about. For my own work, I feel the burden of representation, and I've fought it for a long time. I don't like to necessarily be put in a category of needing to make black comics because I am black, and it's something that I've not felt comfortable with for the longest time. I fought against it for a very long time, and what I've now been able to reconcile within my own mindscape and things like that is the idea that when I produce, it does not have to be a definitive statement on what I can produce. And that was one of the reasons why I fought it for so long, was the idea that if I make a black comic, that's the expectation of me. I cannot create beyond that boundary. I can't speak to any voice beyond that essence. So, ironically, the first book that I ever promote or produce under my imprint is called The Samaritan. It very prominently features an African-American superhero. That is, as I now openly say, a black comic. Absolutely, it speaks to this particular genre readership. However, the characters in the book The Trouble with Love, despite its very personal, almost autobiographical essence of it, are not black. Ironically, at East Coast Black Age Comic Con, ECBOC, where I met Bill, I actually had the Trouble with Love there, and I had a person for one of the first times ever come to me and say, no, I don't want to read that book because there's no black people in it. And I asked her, I was like, do you know what it's about? And she's like, no. And I said, it's about infidelity. I was like, do you want me to showcase black people that way? And she's like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, oh, so now it's okay then. But it's having to take those things into consideration as well as a member of a particular diverse ethnic background. What I present with black characters is going to be weighed differently than others.
Well, I have a funny little anecdote. Like that's all we had Shattered Prison, and the two guys who are doing it, the magazine that we're doing, he's Italian American, and he lives in Britain, and the other guy is Palestinian Israeli who lives in Berlin, right? And they wanted to use these words for it. Like one of the words was diaspora, and I was like, hey man, you can't do that because I'm a black publisher, and they're going to think that it's going to be all about black people. He's like, what? I'm like, look, man, you have a black publisher now. They're going to think you're black.
Yes.
And he was like, really? I was like, no, trust me, right? So then we just came out with Chadiana, which is about this imagined medieval India, right? And the guy who does it is white. And the first review we got was, wow, look at how he reimagined Africa. I told you, it doesn't matter what we're doing, no matter who we are, because, we're like all kinds of things, as far as diversity goes, but I was like, you're with a black publisher now, you're going to be black, I don't care what you look like.
Doesn't matter what you do. Well, you just got good hair, that's all.
Yeah.
Nice
What are you going to ask?
Do you guys worry at all, and I don't, when I say you guys, I don't mean
Right,
you're
right.
saying. Do you worry about limiting your appeal just doing, is that a concern?
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
I have an interesting story. I published a comic book back in the 90s. It was called The Superior Seven. It was a black and white superhero group. And we were in a show in New York City. And my best friends from high school, one black guy and 3 white guys, we all went to New York, sold this book. Our highest demographic of sales came from Brooklyn, New York, all over the country. We were internationally published. And I had a group of black kids come up and look at the comic, and they said, "Oh man, the black guy's the leader of the group." He said, "I know you have something to do with that, bro." And pointed to my friend Dion. And Dion just shook his head and said, "No." He said, "He did that." And he said, "Tell him why you did that." And I said, "Because that's his personality. He's the leader, and I don't care what color his skin is."
Right.
You know,
Right.
you have to think, when I create, I don't think in terms of color.
Right.
You know, I think in terms of personalities, and I don't think in terms of gender. You know, if the story that I want to tell, I don't start it with, well, I need a black guy, you know, white chick. You know, there's a point I want to get across, there's emotion I want to connect with people on, and then it'll
Tells
speak
that
to
story.
yeah, the person will appear on their own.
Right.
Well, Persia Blues, I think this is like a really, because I mean, I have my own answers, but I think that since you are definitely declaring, you know,
Yeah, so
you know.
there's 2 things I want to say. I want to speak to what you just spoke, but also like when you were talking about your anecdote, it reminded me of something with me, which I thought was kind of funny and somewhat ironic. So I did this one issue of a Ghostbusters comic, and it was Valentine's Day special, right? So it had like love aspect to it, and I wanted to focus the story on Winston's character because I think you know in the movies obviously yes I can be so much right. So I thought I want to have a love interest for him. So me and the artist Saul Goodson, he's a Canadian guy, we created a love interest for him. Her name was Tia. She's an African American. She's a teacher, and she like I wanted someone that could hold her own with all the humor and everything, just have like a positive, kind of cool character. And I got in, I'm trying to remember if it was a review, or if I, like a comment in a review, or I just got an email from someone, and they said, that was kind of a nice story, but why did she have to be black? Why couldn't he date a white woman? That's the 21st century, And it kind of threw me. I'm like, well, yeah, I guess he could, but at the same time, I kind of thought, there's not enough positive representation of women of color in comics, so I kind of thought that would be cool.
Right.
And in fact, the writers that took over the monthly Ghostbusters comic liked the character enough that they not only kept her in the book, but now she's married.
Oh, nice.
Which I thought was really cool. But that comment totally threw me off, because I wasn't even thinking about
You
it.
can't win
Dan,
one way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, the trouble with love, I specifically had to have that conversation with myself. Do I make this character black? No, because then the judgment will be, well, this is what black people are like. And I'm like, let me not do that.
And I think that basically.
That's something that bugs me a lot, because in my own comics, I do comedy primarily, and I do mostly Far Side style, it's just one strip,
Right.
is all you need. But I struggle with I have an idea for this strip, and I struggle with throughout most of my strip, it's all been very whitewashed, not deliberately so, but because I'll think occasionally I should start putting other characters of other ethnicities in there. I should start putting black people and Asian people and so forth in there. And I think, okay, let me make this character black, and then I'll realize what happens to the character in the strip. And I'll suddenly freak up, and I'll end up not doing it because I'm terrified that people will read that as me being racist.
Right.
Well,
In this
I would
day and
say-
age, that's a huge thing,
Yeah.
because I made a comment the other day to a friend of mine that we're living in an age where it's not only the age of PC, we're in the age of PC on steroids.
Well,
And
here-
anything you say,
Yeah,
It's
let me
be-
put it this way. We've lived in a culture where white is the given of humanity.
Yeah.
So much so that white people are 1/7 of the planet, yet they are people, and everybody else is people of color.
Right.
So, anytime you take away that given, whatever you do, if it's a woman, if it's somebody of a different race, and a different sexuality, whatever, as soon as you get straight away from that given, it is going to have a lot more weight than anything else. Now, the fact that you're afraid of that says how much of a given that is. So you can't really blame PC anything. It is the fact that we live in a culture where where you are the given. You're 33% of this country, right? But you are the given. so I wouldn't go around saying, "Oh, these PC social justice warriors, whatever." It's like, think about the culture, and it's in things that don't even make sense. Like, we'll have white people in the center of civil rights movies. We'll have white people in the middle of India freeing, like Punjabi slaves. It was like it is just that much of a given.
Jesus was
Exactly. I'm sorry.
It's out there, I mean, this is a panel on diversity,
Right.
which implies difference. Difference compared to what, right? So,
Right,
like,
exactly.
if I'm sitting here in my own skin, I don't think of myself as different, I think of myself as myself. But in terms of social categories, I am defined differently against some kind of standard or norm,
Right.
and that in our culture is white males. So,
Right.
that's, I mean, it's a reality that we have to deal with, it's a reality that we have to contend with, and I think that we're at this point in our culture where it's creeping up into every aspect of our culture.
Right.
Our films, our comics, our television shows, our music, these realities. So I agree, it's not PC, it's just that we're now finally, like, everybody's forced to face it, everybody's forced to.
Right, it's like basically,
these categories.
I think the dominant white culture is now facing what everybody else faces from the time you're like 5. Because you're rolling around being a kid and all of a sudden you're black, you're like, what? Like, what's that mean?
Yeah.
And that's if you live in a nice area. I grew up in white working class Pittsburgh. That wasn't the word they used.
That's it's the culture.
So now all of a sudden, and I live in DC where everybody's overrepresented. So I actually kind of forget how white the country is until I get in the car, and then I drive to someplace here, and you're like, wow, okay, right. All right, 68%, right? Yeah, that makes sense. But
So I don't know.
I guess the norm has to be, the difference would probably have to be the norm.
Yeah.
Like if we could just all just kind of go, hey, we're different. And I think, I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be cool,
Like the norm is that we're different. And like in 25 years, right, it is really going to be that. I mean, it's like 68% white now.
Right.
And 20 years from now, it will probably be 40%. So we'll all just be different.
People, just be people.
Yeah.
It won't go out that smoothly, but yeah, it'll go gently into that, good night, but.
When the aliens come down.
That's all they're
They
doing.
don't know what your skin is.
So then, since we are in this crux, where this is actually a discussion, what do you feel as different creators that we all are here? Like, what do you feel that your role is, or is it even important to you?
I want to jump in though first and
Okay,
just
please.
say that I understand white males are the target group, and I think that even just saying that drops gender out of the equation, and I don't think we should drop gender out of the equation, and I think that one of the things women really probably struggle with in a way guys don't is the body image issue and what the standard of beauty is and how it's not, I don't feel like I'm compared one way or another because of the color of my skin. I'm compared because of the size of my body and how it never fit into that norm.
Right.
And and also the ideas about women not being as bright. Do you remember when the Barbie came out, that had the talking Barbie that said, I'm not good at math?
Oh,
And
yes.
that raised that huge controversy. Well, I had, and this was a while back, I'm not a spring chicken, but I had an algebra teacher who said it was such a shame that girls weren't good at math.
Wow.
You know?
The funny thing is, because I have a daughter, and first grade now. I'm sorry, she'll be in second grade. They actually say that now about boys.
The boys aren't good at math?
Yeah, like our school orientation, like all of the stereotypes that you said about girls, like when I was in school,
Now they're switched.
they used to say about boys.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they should.
Well, because it's like, it's the fight of false dichotomous thinking.
It
right?
really is.
So it's like
false
we
dichotomy.
have to teach somebody. So
Somebody's
and then,
bad.
and then somebody like we're not gonna teach.
It turns out actually that the only reason why those stereotypes hold true is because when
Switch
you
your
go,
attention.
when you go into the test thinking, I'm a girl or I'm whatever and we're not good at this, it distracts you from the test.
The actual.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, there's part of that. But
Nervous,
people
you're
do
thinking
check.
about, I'm not good at this. And
But people switch their
Therefore,
attention.
you're
Like basically like
distracted.
you have talented and gifted.
Right.
And so we focus our attention on like those 5 kids in that class who are talented and gifted.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's more than just that psychology.
Well-
It's also a matter of like we do switch our attention.
Yeah.
To get back to body image thing. I mean, what other which I wholeheartedly agree with.
Yeah.
So what other kind of, because the rest of us are dudes. So what other kind of special kind of challenges do you feel for women in comics? I mean, since we are in San Diego, we actually have a woman on a panel. Let's exploit you.
Okay. Yes, yeah. I mean, I actually feel like I'm more accepted in the comics community than, as a creator, than I was in the academic community as an academic. I remember I got negative feedback in graduate school for putting too much emphasis on my children and stuff because I didn't seem as committed. And I don't feel, now I've only mostly been around indie comics. I don't know that much about the mainstream comics. But to me, this atmosphere has felt very accepting of women and of a wide variety of comics and stuff.
So where do you think, and this is for everybody, where do you think, because online,
Everyone's different online.
right, everybody's different online, but where do you think like this resistance, because we see all kinds of backlashes all the time.
Right.
Where do you think that this generates from? Because it makes certain segments of fandom look just really, really horrible.
Honestly, I think it's the hipster-esque idea of superiority. See, now that things are opening up to invite everyone, there still has to be, in our opinion, a hierarchy of those that are better, more knowledgeable. Yeah, we have to have some sort of levels to this game. And now that we're opening up the doors for everyone to take part, we're establishing very superficial reasonings for things to be looked at in certain ways. We ironically, 20, 35 years later, still have the beef between mainstream versus indie. When, in terms of comics are an underdog for most other mediums. As comic creations have created a sense of pop cultural intrigue, it's not the books that have done it, it's other media. So why do we still have our hierarchies of indie versus mainstream, alternative versus more mainstream-esque style things? We still do it on a system of trying to find not just our place, but to state a position where other people are not. We still try to do that. It's our nature of trying to feel better about what we do, and it's unfortunate, very unfortunate, even still.
I don't know. I mean, this is kind of a tough one for me. I think partly because my friend Matt Tisch, we were talking about diversity and like my background. He's always asking me about like growing up in Iran and all that kind of stuff. And he made a comment that I thought was really interesting. He said, "Well, have you ever like firsthand felt kind of discrimination or whatever because of your background, or was it less for you because you kind of have?" I'm trying to remember how you put it.
Is it ethnically ambiguous?
Yes, ethnically ambiguous. So you could, someone could look at you and think you're white and not, unless they know who you are, they hear your name.
Well, Susie, yeah, you did.
Right, so it's a weird thing for me because like Andy was saying, you know, like I don't think of myself as being different, and I don't think of myself as the other, or I'm Middle Eastern first and foremost, or whatever. You know, I'm just me. You know, and I grew up most of my life in the U.S. I just happen to have a different background. So you know, it's really weird for me, even just sitting here on this panel talking about diversity and trying to figure out like how much of it does it apply to me, and how much am I like really the person that we're talking to, you know?
I feel that feel about myself.
Yeah.
Have you, like, I can't say that I can ever claim getting shut out for being black on anything. Like, so when it comes to the notions of appropriation, I can't make that argument because I've never faced it. Like, everything that I do as a professional in the game, as a comic creator, I've never had anybody say, well, but you're black, in any way, shape, or form.
I think we're past those days.
I mean, to a degree,
I mean,
yes.
well, we
But I mean,
live in a country where racists get offended if you call them racist.
well, that's true. But I mean, like, I've never been stopped.
No, I mean,
for anything I wanted to do, so I could never place the blame on, well, they held me down because I'm this, you know.
well, I mean, there's a fundamental irony and diversity things in themselves because they automatically other you.
Yes, it's true.
Well,
I have another question about that, though. You're saying you've never been stopped for doing something professionally that you want to do. However, but that doesn't mean that you haven't experienced cases of like you know, white man's privilege, like where like when police officers stop you, they treat you differently than white people, right?
If they stop me.
Okay.
You know, that's
Right.
like
But
literally
you've
when I
been-
say I haven't.
You've been stopped and had, you know, like tickets and stuff, right? Or
Okay, so here's the funny one. The recent ticket that I got was in 2012.
mm-hmm.
It was for speeding. The
Okay.
ticketing officer, it was in Indiana, he marked me as Caucasian. So,
Wow.
yeah.
wow, racist in Indiana.
Wow.
He marked me as Caucasian. The irony of it is based on, you know, ticketing law, the ticket should be thrown out because it's not
it was
correct.
incorrect,
It's
yeah.
incorrect information. Based on my ethnicity and obviously the visual standard of this officer, who's very much so in question, can you really say that I was speeding when you can't tell that I am not? I'm question. But when it comes to anything else, my mannerisms, the way that I do things might be the only aspect of any sort of racism that I would get, and it's only because I catch people off guard. I don't speak as though I am black. So that's the one caveat that I'll ever give it, where I've walked into a place that has hired me for a presentation, and I walk in and I say, I'm this person, and they go, oh.
Because other people are expecting you to be a stereotype.
Well, they just don't expect, like, they hear my name. Victor Dandridge is not a typically, it's not a Jamal, it's not a Raheem. So you see Victor Dandridge, you presume something. I walk in and I claim that position. It's not what you thought, it's, oh, can I say that that's bad? No, because I still got hired. You still can pay me. Like,
Yeah.
there's no two ways about that. And then when I do my job, I do it at a level that almost gets elevated because of said quote unquote racism. It never stopped me. It actually is something I can use because you're like, oh, well, he's only going to do this. And I go, bam. And they're like, well, he did way better. I'm like, yeah. So it didn't stop me. Like, it's one that I actually can, you know, launch pin off of and become even greater because you only assumed I could do this.
Right.
So I can't ever claim it as a negative because I've never experienced it where I try to do this and it stops me and I'm like, oh dang, I can't do it and it must be because ...
I would say,
I just thought I had to imagine that there had to have been other scenarios in which.
well,
I've been fortunate enough that I can't claim that.
Wow.
I would say this goes back to your other question when you were talking about characters and whether if you make a character of color, do you feel that will affect it? And I think those are the kinds of things that you would see, but they're not necessarily, I mean, like, you can't sit there and go like, oh, this is, you know, racism because I sold this and they sold that. But I mean, you can see these things, I mean, sort of, it's one of those funny things like when you look at like discrimination in America today, right? You see, like, it's not the flag waving, the burning down the thing, right? So like you're living this life, and you're going like, well, am I being discriminated against? But you look at the stats, and it's like, yes, every facet of your life you're being discriminated against. But it's not that you are actually seeing it. But you know you're getting paid less. You know, like they're deciding which homes you're going to buy. It's like all these things are happening.
And that's
but
the
they're
big
not
underlying
happening.
problem with race in this country is and I had this conversation with friends of mine at work a couple weeks ago. They said, what's the problem? I live in Cincinnati. We have all the shootings lately with the police and black people. What's the problem? Why is it so? Because there's a lot of closet racism that still exists in this country.
So then-
People are unwilling to discuss.
So then when you're looking at like what we're talking about here, like what we do, I don't think that there's ever been a point necessarily where somebody was like, ooh, because like nobody's gonna pick up like, say, like Mothership, which is our anthology focusing on people of color. Like nobody's gonna sit there and go, oh my God, the science fiction anthology about people of color. Oh, you know, like that is never going to like I don't like that wouldn't even happen at a Klan rally.
Well, you gotta think though that because it's an indie comic, and in indie comics, everything is accepted. You know what I mean? Like you run the gamut, so immediately you're kind of like, just like what you were saying earlier, you're accepted. All the weirdness, all the stuff that mainstream will never do, you have the freedom to just do that in indie comics. You know what I'm saying?
But then on the
It's
mainstream
accepted.
level, we are discriminated against because we're lesser
Yeah.
in that sense.
Well, there is obvious.
We don't fit that like pre-packaged version that they've created, you know, as far as the comics are supposed to.
I mean, that's what I think is so fascinating about this is that we can do this here where we can't necessarily do it there for myriad reasons.
But we're not always as accepted though. One of the first titles that I ever wrote was Hot Shot with Mike. And we were at a show in Springfield. And these were people that we became friendly with, like very friendly. And one of the guys came up to us and said, we're surprised to see you do a mainstream style superhero, even though you're indie. So even though it's supposed to be very accepted, because we were leaning more towards a mainstream style product, that was weird. And it was openly stated that that's not normal. On a personal sense of my own work. Yeah, you know, like even in Columbus specifically, Columbus is a very alternative comics friendly town. Us doing more mainstream stuff is not as widely accepted. Like if one could say in any sense of discrimination, that would be the only one that I could possibly say actually exists. Because we'll say numbers wise, over the last let's say 3-4 years, Space Prize I've submitted and been a finalist for the last 3-4 years. We're talking prizes that have a 1, 2, 3 category, never won. Most of my stuff is more mainstream. Does that mean that, you know, it just wouldn't ever appeal to the people that are judges because it's not their type of comics? Possible. But that's got nothing to do with me racially. It's just that sense of what the leanings are for the show. I mean, it's in the name, Alternative Comics Expo. It's understood. I have that understanding that even though I put my stuff in there, and it's not the type of comics that are regularly seen in this community, I'm still doing it because I know my stuff is good. And every time it hits the finalists, that is saying what I know. You know, I can still claim that aspect. Whether it won or not, I can say this was a finalist in this place. It stood amongst these other giants of alternative comics, and they at least recognize that it should be a finalist. Whether I got, you know, 1, 2, or 3, okay, fine. You know, playing the game is not, you know, it's not those types of comics, and they're going to be judged that way.
So I'm not exactly sure what we're going on time, but we are kind of running out. So I was like, because we started late, so I'm not exactly sure.
Stay 53.
Well, no, I know the time. I'm just saying I don't know how much time we have. So anybody
There's
have
supposed to be another panel in about 10 minutes.
anybody else have questions for us?
Candace.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to hear from her.
Yeah.
Oh, you wanted to hear what I was trying to, I thought that it was really interesting what you said about your name.
Yes.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about you're right that there's not that really overt either racism or sexism. It's like we all kind of consciously know that's bad. But there have been a couple of really, really fascinating social science experiments that have been done. They're very comparable. In both of them, they took resumes that were exactly the same. In one of the studies, one was a male and one was a female. In the other study, one of them had a very traditionally white name and the other one had a very traditionally black name. And in both experiments, people who were asked to rate these always rated the male when it was a male and female, the kind of more white name when it was a black name and a white name. And it's like, that's that underlying.
Well, I mean, my name
Prejudice.
is William Robert Campbell, right? So,
Yeah.
and I went to Northwestern, and then you hit me on the phone.
Yeah.
Like, well, I mean, I know, because like when I used to have dreads down to my ass, like as soon as I walked in, then people were like,
Oh.
you're not William Robert Campbell from Northwestern University. Like, there's no way. It's
Yeah.
hard. So yeah, I mean, I kind of.
Yeah, and it feels like, to me, that that's kind of the level at what, that's where we need to kind of like work at changing people's minds. And just, I think that by getting ourselves out there and trying to show ourselves as, look, we are really all human, that's the only way we're gonna be able to ameliorate that.
So do you think that your work helps?
I do think, especially things like this, which I'm totally, this is
So then,
Plug.
plug, and, I poured my heart and soul into this, so,
okay, so I have another quick question for you, because like,
yeah.
I think that we all, because we have this whole thing of what the norm is, like the straight white guy. Like people often read your work with a lot, as I said, with a lot more meaning than you necessarily have. Yeah, as like I said, like everybody who works for us, whether they are, from Iran, say, or Sweden, like they become black. So do you think like the content matters, or if it's just like you're just telling a story? Like your story is like a grad student, right? If I remember correctly, right? So do you think just telling this story that wouldn't necessarily be Iranian, just like, do you feel that is important to just tell kind of normal stories, or do you feel like just doing it is like the issue itself, just putting it out there?
I think the quick answer is both. Like, I think you need both. You need, just tell your story, without it specifically being about race or gender, but just make a conscious effort to have a diverse cast, right? So that starts to, over time, as a whole bunch of creators do, that starts to become the norm and people don't think it's weird. Right. That's one thing. But I think at the same time, that alone isn't going to do it. You need stories specifically from a very specific point of view of, as a woman, or as a gay person, or as a transgender person, or as a black person. This is what I've experienced, or this is my voice. And that needs to be out there too, so that people are exposed to it. Because if it's not out there and you don't read it, it seems foreign and weird, when it really isn't. There's a lot of those stories out there, right, where it's not exposed to it.
Right.
Right,
I think they're both
yeah. And when you read somebody's story and their experience may be totally different than yours, but you recognize and resonate with certain aspects of it, that just makes us all get to know.
I definitely would say that my work speaks to that same aspect. Like I said, the Samaritan, when I first created it, was just a story. Recognizing how it has been adopted by urban culture has been one where I have to recognize it as a certain thing, as a voice piece, like you said. I'm speaking to a particular culture through that medium. Does it define everything else that I have on the table? No. I have things for all ages kids. I have things that are geared towards fathers and sons. The book Origins Unknown that I have has a very prominent female character on the front. And I get a lot of females that pick that book up just on that basis alone. So I can, like you said, having that wide range of things, but then also have things that speak directly to certain audiences is that piece. It's a matter of not trying to have that universal concept that everybody's supposed to be able to get into, have many things for multiple people, because all those different ranges of voice are all valid, are all necessary to be spoken to, but still accessible by everyone else. The Samaritan is one that, ironically, though I qualified as a black comic, sells better to white people. I don't know why, it just does.
There's more of them.
I mean, that's cool, but even though there's more, they don't have to go for it. I mean, considering the range of things on the table.
Yeah, but my second novel was called My Beauty Novel. It was all about black people falling in love, and it was my target demographic was literally white women 28 to 54.
I will take it. I like the green. I will
It
take
is,
it.
I mean, that's the way it is. Well, I guess if nobody has any questions, like for me personally, with Rosarium, I just believe that everybody should be able to tell their own stories. I don't really feel like this is a radical notion, yet a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And I don't care if your story is about Black Panthers or about little black dots that are floating in space. It's like if it is your story, it is your story, and it is important to tell it. You just need to do it well. I guess for you, as an audience, since you're here and you're interested in it, first, thank you
Right.
for being interested in it. I appreciate that. I think we all do. And I guess because it is hard, if it is something that is very important to you, just look and ask, because it's like Tower Records back in the day when you had like 15,000 CDs and you couldn't figure out what, we're right in front of you.
Right.